Oh, figured I'd make another video since I'm not doing anything up this late, even though I've taken a sleeping pill. I'm still awake. I don't know if it's the ADHD in me or the trucker in me or um, what, but I just don't sleep lately. Um, yeah, I'm playing around a lot with AI music. Um, I know it's controversial for a lot of people, but me being a musician, I wanted to check it out. Um, and AI is one of those things that I guess at my age, I'm 39. Um, lived through a lot of crazy shit, and I wish I'd invested in that crap. Um, I wish I'd learned like C plus. Instead, I was like, oh, I'll do A plus because I don't want to learn how to program. Well, I mean, obviously it would have paid off. I could have gone in different routes in life, having learned A plus. I mean, I mean C plus. Sorry, I think A plus helped me a lot when it came to audio engineering, though, and signal flow and things like that. But C plus, I think, would have maybe opened up a few different um, job opportunities, after high school. Um, Maybe even in audio engineering, I would have been programming, plugins at this point or something. I don't know. Um, but I just wasn't interested in it in high school and stuff. Um, and I couldn't see beyond, you know. And I think with AI music, um, looking at how Napster was sort of like, ooh, it's a bad thing. And I'm not saying that it wasn't in some ways, but Apple Music came from Napster, and Spotify came from Napster, and all these streaming services, and even probably YouTube to some extent. Um, I think Napster showed the world people wanted things for free and more affordable in some ways. And not that music CDs and tapes weren't unaffordable. Um, they were certainly still cheaper than vinyl. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I guess the primary audience was like teenagers to early 20s. Still kind of is. Um, I mean, adults bought CDs, but it was like the greatest hits and um, Michael Bolton and Celine Dion. Like the older stuff, the Christmas albums. Like they weren't the ones going out and buying new CDs to everything. They probably waited 6 months to a year after an artist had an album. They weren't really following them as diligently as younger audiences were. Um, and Napster kind of showed that like people want easy access to content in some ways. Um, and once they went down, Apple was like, well, why don't we just make it cheaper? You can buy per song, And eventually they realized like, hey, do we even need to sell per song when we could just have a whole subscription service? We've got a catalog. We can just let them stream it, And so I guess I kind of see like AI music is having that same kind of potential that it's not going to go away. Um, it's just going to become something different. Um, whether it's its own subdivision of Billboard at some point, um, or if they become just their own streaming service. That just people pay to make AI music and stream it. Or if some point some artists like Metallica or Taylor Swift or somebody says, hey, I just want to go ahead and like have my likeness recreated in AI, but I approve of the use, and it becomes a tool for them, saying like, hey, my voice is out, let's have AI generate it or something for this song, or somebody wants to put me on a Christmas album and I don't want to sing it, let the AI version of me do it, I approve of it. I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go, but I feel like it's going to go somewhere. And it's also just a fun thing for me to play around with as a creative person and songwriter. Um, it makes it a lot easier to write lyrics because that's primarily what I love to do. I love to just write. I love to tell stories, um, whether it's like an actual kind of poetic, emotional story, or it's an actual visual story of like here's what happened to such and such character or something, and it's like a short story. I mean, some of my favorite lyricists and musicians are like, King Diamond. I mean, the guy writes horror music, and it's way out there, but it's funny, but it's also like, this is kind of cool. This is some cool stories. Um, and then bands like Queensryche, Fate's Warning. I mean, Fate's Warning, you know, I they're not very vivid image-wise in their lyrics, but they're very emotional. They're very introspective, and it's great prog rock for people who are introverts or struggling with depression or something. It's just it's like prog rock for the emotionally distraught. I don't know, but then you hear a lot of their other side projects, and it's like, whoa, like it's a whole nother ballpark. Um, and I mean other bands that I love. I mean, like the Misfits. I mean, they're story songs. Everything's about monsters and horror stuff. Rob Zombie. Um, Trying to think of some other bands like Phil Collins. I mean, Genesis. Jesus, He Knows Me. It's like he's writing a song about a preacher that's like possibly gay and stealing money from people. You know, Home by the Sea. It's like a song about a ghost haunting a house like by the sea. Like what? And I mean, some of them don't even make sense. Like Abacab. It's just random nonsense that they put together and are like, hey, it just sounds cool. You know, it was all built around the structure of that song. I mean, even Sussudio, like I have my suspicions of how that song was probably created. Obviously, it was about a woman, but I feel like drugs and alcohol were probably involved. That it was probably them writing in the studio and be like, I don't know what to call this song. Like, I want to think of like, Sarah or Jessica or just some, Mariah. Like, I don't know. He's probably just thinking of the syllables. And then somebody walks in and is like, hey, what time are you gonna go to the studio? Whether they had a stutter or they were like really coked out or something. And he probably was like, whoa, studio. Like, just, I don't know. I feel like that's probably how the name came about. Somebody was like, would be like, yeah, when are we going back in the studio? And they just couldn't pronounce it right at the moment. And they're like, studio. Oh my God. But I mean, that's what I love about being creative is like sometimes just um, in the moment, stupid things like that become like cool. I mean, and I know in country music there was a period there like around 2008 they were like, if you're not putting some kind of nonsense like na 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 wah 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 kind of baby cry junk in the song, like you're just not going to get it cut. And like everybody was like adding like na 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 na, and it's like, God, man, like it got to where it's like I don't want to hear it because it's in everything. And now it's still in country, it's still in pop music, but it's great because it reinforces the melody in music. It makes it more memorable. They may not remember the chords, but they remember that na 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 na, and like, now everybody's got to do it. Um, but that's trends for you. That's trends in everything. But yeah, with the AI stuff, like I've done everything from pop, country, tried to do some kind of rock stuff. The rock stuff is hit or miss, and then like death metal and black metal and soft rock. And I feel like the soft rock, it is like on point. Um, I've probably got like about 40 soft rock songs from a project that I did in the past like couple months. Um, and then as far as like black metal, kind of death metal stuff, um, the stuff that I do is more 80s kind of black metal, like King Diamond, Merciful Fate kind of stuff. Um, almost Ronnie James Dio-ish. It's I probably got about 40 songs or so of that. I know I've got 3 albums worth. Um, and it's I almost like the older versions of the AI stuff too because it it sounds more similar to what black metal was doing back then. It's the old style of like it's just some young fool in a garage with a microphone in his band, and you just hear everything, and it's so poorly recorded. But you're like, oh my God, it's the emotion, it's intense, and it's different with the AI stuff. But I feel like the AI sort of like messing up or creating some random frequencies and not knowing how to interpret some of the lyrics correctly, it causes it to freak out and do some really fun things somehow. And even with the audio mixing, it's like it just works for black metal. I've been using Suno, by the way. I messed around with Udio. I feel like Udio, you can have more specific results, um, and you can do it with Suno too. But you can steer Udio in the direction you want it to go. But it may take more generations. Suno, I feel like its overall audio quality is a lot better, but you may have to like waste a lot of credits trying to get what you want. Um, and you're going to have to learn how the prompts are responding, um, in a sense. Um, if they add certain sounds or lyrics or things that you don't want it to do, you're going to have to know kind of what to remove in the prompts or what maybe to add that would steer it in the direction you want it to go. I really wish Suno would let you choose kind of the length of the song, and I mean you kind of can through the versions of it right now, but um, it'd be nice if they said like, would you like a 1 minute generation, and you could just go verse chorus, kind of thing. Um, but it's still really fun, and I feel like it's going to go somewhere. And I feel like even with the Google Veo 3 that just came out, like I've played around a little bit with that through their Flow thing. I just did the trial of it, because I've been seeing all these Bigfoot AI videos, um, and I felt like, hey, like I, I'm I I'm not trying to make viral content. I mean, part of me was like, I'll just make some Bigfoot videos about him talking about life and motivational advice or something, from Bigfoot, just because I'm a fan of Bigfoot. I thought it'd be funny, but I figured, hey, like something fun to do. I'm sitting around not doing anything. I'm awake all night. Let me just mess with it. And I blew through the credits that I got in like 1 hour because I just kept making generation after generation. But seeing what a lot of people are doing with VO3 right now, and just making those like little funny, viral videos of social media content, people that are like in public, like, hey, like, what do you think of this and what do you think of that, and they're just talking about crap, like stupid crap. Um, I've been seeing a lot of those videos, and I feel like the Google VO is, they're trying to push it in the direction of social media, or even um, I mean, you could do filmmaking and things like that with it, but it feels like it's really, really primitive right now on the AI side. Um, their text to speech, I mean, text to video is pretty much just like it does whatever it wants to do. Like you can give it some very specific prompts, like, and you may not know at all what it's going to do. I feel like with like Suno and ChatGPT, you can tell it certain things, and it's like ChatGPT is like almost spot on. Suno, really close. I can say it in the style of such and such, and most artists that are fairly large, some of them boot you out. Like you can't say in the style of Taylor Swift, but you can say in the style of like Merciful Fate, King Diamond, um, Ronnie James Dio, Phil Collins, Michael Bolton, and it's not 100%, but it's at least 50 to 60%, maybe more, depending on who. And especially if you put certain prompts in there that might be in that artist's music. Um, but with the VO3, it definitely felt like it just sort of does what it wants to do. Like I put a simple prompt of like um, a note on a nightstand with a light. That was it. No, I think maybe I added like a camera zoom, zoom in on the note. And suddenly it was like there was just multiple people's hands picking up this note and throwing it onto a bed, and it was adding a lot of things. Another one was like a teddy bear um, on the ground next to a chair that it was knocked over, and it couldn't give me a simple response of that. I was getting like people walking around in the room, and the room's filled with all sorts of junk, and then maybe I was not descriptive enough. But even with some of the Bigfoot ones, it was like I would put like an older Bigfoot walking in the forest, camera zooms in on Bigfoot's face, and he gives you life advice, and then I typed in Bigfoot says whatever, um, and it comes back as like a gorilla running through the forest, and then the camera's just like Blair Witch style, like all over the place, and then it just came up with a bunch of gibberish for what it was saying. But there was like a narrator's voice saying it, but Bigfoot was like his mouth was going all over the place. Maybe with the higher paid subscriptions, it's a little bit better. I don't know, but it seems like they really want to push that Flow video maker. Um, so I don't know. I might mess with it more. It's like $120 for 3 months or something, but I feel like it's a skill. Um, Even if you don't want to learn the programming side of AI, like how to write an AI script, I feel like learning how to make content with AI is going to be something that's helpful, maybe. I mean, maybe it's like in the early days of YouTube, where it's just like learn how to use YouTube, put tags, and talk about cooking or whatever, or being a mechanic, and I mean whatever your skill is. Um, Obviously, a lot of people come to YouTube wanting to know how to make AI music or videos. I'm one of them, but I feel like it's one of those things that like we can fight it, and I understand the environmental impact. It is pretty big, um, but it's not going away. Like the best we can do at this point is protect our jobs, from being taken with AI. Even if it's like, you're a secretary or you're a, I mean, me as a flight dispatcher, that job can be done by AI. To what extent is the question. Same with a musician. I mean, at some point, AI is going to get really freaking good. It's going to be it's already in plugins. It's been in plugins to some extent. Drum plugins, piano, keyboard, guitar, bass, all those things. Um, and it'll probably be to the point where like you can really just put crazy amounts of prompts on there, and um, people will be able to make whatever they want. It's pretty much there now. Give it another year or two, and Suno will be like even more mind blowing than it is. Um, and same with the video content. I mean, there'll probably be an alternative to TikTok and to YouTube, um, and it will be an AI version of it, that people will go to. They'll look for AI content, um, because the content that real humans are making is somewhat lacking, I think, in some ways. That and it's weird to say that, you know. It's weird to say that like maybe we're burned out of the same type of movies. Maybe we're burned out of the same type of TV shows and music. Um, you know, I can see the fear from AI and what it could bring, but I think we got to also ask ourselves like, what is it about AI that we do like? Um, and a lot of those Bigfoot videos where there's like it's just Bigfoot running in the forest with a GoPro, and he's like, I found this white brick in the forest. I don't know what the hell it is, but let me smell it. Oh my god! And he's like running, cracked out on cocaine or something. Saw another one where he's like running drugs for the cartel, and another one where he's hanging out with the Yeti. And he's like, yeah, this is my bro from out of state. Like, we're gonna go hunting, or fishing or something. And I mean, it was just stupid stuff. It was like The Office kind of material. Um, but it's a lot of people have responded to that. Bigfoot's an icon. It's something that we all enjoy, um, or at least a lot of people. But that style of content, and I mean, obviously there's a lot of TV shows that have kind of played off that style as well. But you know, what is it that the people that are looking at the AI are enjoying about it? Is it the lack of um, human connection in a sense? Maybe a lot of the content that we have today, whether it's music or visual art, whether it's film or paintings or whatever, um, we're trying to push too many narratives. I don't know. I know to some extent with musicians, I don't want to hear about their political beliefs or their religious or spiritual or whatever. I mean, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Um, Same thing with like actors and stuff. I mean, I feel like now, speaking up has become a trend more than it's become a necessity or um, I don't know, just a choice. Um, it feels like everybody has to have a voice, and that's fine, and that's their right. But I feel like sometimes it just feels like, well, so and so said it, so I gotta say something like that too in response or along with it. And it's hard to go to the movie theater or listen to a song or something now and not hear some kind of narrative, whether we want to hear about that or not. Um, and maybe that's something we're kind of burned out of. Um, but maybe that's also because we're burned out of a lot of other things in life. That we're all financially struggling and stuff. But here I've made another 20-minute video, and I didn't mean to. But hopefully somebody enjoys this. Um, Either way, um, if y'all want to hear my AI music, let me know. I don't know how I'll go about releasing it because I did write the lyrics. So I would like to copyright it. I don't know if I can quite copyright it, but either way, I've got everything from pop, country, rock, death metal, black metal, and soft rock, and 80s kind of style rock. So, oh, EDM as well, and jazz. Yeah, I forgot about that. But those obviously I didn't write anything. I just was like, do this, like in the style of with this and this and. But the soft rock one, I actually am pretty proud of it. I just have to figure out how to go about releasing it. That one I think I'll release whether people want to hear it or not. Because I feel like those songs are pretty good, and part of me is also like maybe I should hold on to them and try and have those actually covered by people. I don't know. I don't know how all it would work, but either way, my thoughts on AI.